What is up, guys? Eric here from Real Film Reviews, bringing you another movie review, this time for the new Robert Downey Jr. film, Avengers Endgame. Endgame is directed by the Russo brothers, stars Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, Chris Hemsworth, Mark Ruffalo, Scarlett Johansson, and Jeremy Renner. This is the epic conclusion to the beginning generation, I guess, of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This is the end. Its name is very final. It's the finality of what we have grown to love over these past 11 years. And for that reason, obviously this review will be spoiler free. So the plot of this film picks up at the end of Infinity War, and pretty much it's our heroes attempting to change what happened at the end of Infinity War. And that's all that I will say. I had the same fears walking into Endgame that I had when I was walking into Infinity War. If you take all of these characters that we've grown to love over all of these years and put them together, that's an extremely difficult task to make that work. And I think with Infinity War, they actually made it work exceptionally well. But with Endgame, I think they actually did an even better job. I think the script for this film is tighter. All of it makes more sense, and I think the biggest thing about this film is we get to see these characters that, as I said, we've grown to love over these past 11 years in these 22 films change. We get to see sides of them that we've never seen before because they've never been in a scenario like this before. And I think that it adds to the script, it adds to the emotion, it adds to the action, it adds to the performances. Everything in this movie gets taken up a notch because these characters are in a scenario unlike anything that we have ever seen them in. They are able to take everything in all of these past films and everything that's happened in the Marvel Universe and put it into this one final film that is the culmination of all of it. It is the Endgame, and I think that because of that, we get this exceptional feeling that is so unlike anything else in film from this movie. This movie was like when I went and saw Force Awakens for the first time in theaters. I was sitting there freaking out about the fact that I was going to get to watch a new Star Wars film in a movie theater. And that was something that I didn't know if I would ever get to do in my lifetime. And that was so awesome. And I think that this movie's finality is the thing that gives it this extra edge. I obviously am not going to go into depth about what the story is or anything like that. But all I will say is I think the script for this movie is exactly what it needed to be. It had the right amount of action, the right amount of emotion. It's paced so well. This is a 3-hour-long film that went by insanely quickly. I've seen plenty of 3-hour movies in my time, movies that are over 3 hours, and almost any movie that's that long eventually drags at some point. It eventually comes to a point where you're like, this scene could have been a little shorter, or this could have moved a little quicker. This movie is exactly the pace that it needs to be, and everything in the pacing is done to perfection to make sure that it builds to the right moments when the big things that happen begin to happen. The music and the score are fantastic throughout the film. They never are overdone to overtake anything that we're seeing on the screen, and I think that they play a very important role in some of the specific scenes throughout the film. Alongside that, the Russo brothers, who I think have shown that they were the right people to give the helm to after Joss Whedon decided to leave, have done another great job with this movie after Winter Soldier and Civil War and, you know, everything that they've done to this point. I think that they've showcased that if they ever decide to leave Marvel to go work on just other films that they have ideas for, that they will be very successful. They handle the action and the emotion in this film perfectly on both sides. They don't sort of focus in too heavily on one but then lack on the other. They're very equal, and I think that's important because this film isn't all about crazy action. It's about these characters coming to the end of a journey that we've seen them on for this insanely long amount of time. And then the performances in this movie from everyone are the best that they've ever done in any film. And I realize that maybe you could argue that that's not true, whatever. But I think that in terms of an ensemble performance in this movie, it is so exceptionally good. It's by far the best performances these people have given as an ensemble in any film. I think the only one you could even argue maybe competes is Avengers 1, the first one. But this film gives us characters, like I said, in scenarios we've never seen them in before. And because of that, we get to see these characters, and specifically these actors, utilize things in their repertoire of acting that we've never seen them use for these characters that they're playing. and it adds that much more to the character because we get to see even more depth and even more to who they are. I don't want to call out everyone because everyone does a good job, but there are a few people that I think specifically deserve to be called out. The first person that I was very happy to see ended up actually doing a lot was Chris Hemsworth. They decided to keep that sort of comedic Thor that we got in Thor Ragnarok, and he does a fantastic job. He is also very, very heartfelt in his performance, and I think that he comes across as a character who we get to see a lot more of in this film than we have seen of in the past, specifically in the way that he changes over time. Paul Rudd as Ant-Man, I think, played the perfect fish out of water who is just put into this scenario as a guy who just happened to fall into being Ant-Man and has now somehow fallen in with the Avengers to help them on this crazy journey. And I think he's very, very funny throughout the film, but his character also has so much heart to him because we know he has a family. Chris Evans is fantastic again as Captain America, giving one of the best performances of his career in this film probably. And then Robert Downey Jr., who started this whole thing as Iron Man all those years ago, is so good. It's so amazing to see him give this amazingly in-depth performance as Tony Stark, who we see change. And that's what this movie's about. It's about change. And I think that some of these characters have changed so drastically that when we see them, it's so intense to see how different they are, but how there still are that person deep down. They're just struggling with what they've had to deal with through all of these events that have taken place. And then the last person that I have to call out is someone who's a two-time Oscar nominee, who it's crazy to me that is like one of the most forgotten about characters, and it's Jeremy Renner as Hawkeye. He is heartbreakingly good in this film. Every scene he is in, he gives his all in it, whether it's action or emotion. I really, really love him. He really invests in the physicality of his character, but also in sort of the emotion that his character has always had. Hawkeye has always had more at stake than everyone else, but no one really knew that until partway through all of the films. And I think that this movie really showcases that even more, and I really, really loved his performance in this movie. I'm gonna be honest with you, I went into this movie with less expectation than I think I expected. Walking into it, I was much more nervous to just see it than I was like setting expectations for what I wanted out of it. And I think that this movie was exactly what it needed to be. This is a film that was, as I've said multiple times now, 22 films in the making, 11 years. 11 years. I was 12 when Iron Man 1 came out. And I've been watching these movies for all of those years. Every single year I've watched Marvel films as they've come out. And I think that that's the amazing thing about this movie. Sure, there's some little flaws that I could nitpick, but they're not worth knocking down this film for what it is, just for nitpicking maybe little tiny things that I didn't like about the way they shot this scene or something. Because this movie is more than that. It's the sum of everything, and I think that's the way it should be viewed. I'm gonna give Avengers Endgame an A+. This is the end of an era film. There are, times when that term is used in all different types of media, and I think that that's what this can be viewed as. This is a once-in-a-generation type of film. Nothing like this has ever been done before. These are episodic films, 22 of them that ended. They brought to a finality for that saga that we witnessed. Similar to Star Wars ending with the Rise of Skywalker, they're ending the Skywalker saga. This ends the Avengers, if you want to call it Generation 1, is now over with this film. And I think that that is something that's genuinely insane to think about. It's something that has existed now and has been such a massive part of pop culture. It has made careers for some of these people. And we have now been lucky enough to live at a time where we were able to watch the finality of it. We were able to start at the beginning and get to now and see these characters change and adapt and grow and see the films change and become something more than just a generic superhero film. And I think that's the biggest thing about this movie. It's not something that you can just watch this and get. You have to see these other things. You have to grow with these characters. Like I said, I was 12 when I watched Iron Man 1 for the first time. 12! And I'm now here watching this movie that ends the story arc that started all those years ago. And I think if you're a fan of these films, if you're a fan of Marvel, I really, really can't stress enough that you need to see this film in theaters. Seeing it in theaters is a different experience, and it's one of those movies that requires that experience. So all I can say is that Avengers Endgame is a fantastic film that closes a saga and a chapter in a lot of people's cinema careers that I was extremely pleased with and was genuinely happy when the credits rolled. Well guys, as always, I'm Eric. If you enjoyed this video, please do like, subscribe, comment down below what you thought of Avengers Endgame, share everything we do here on Real Film Reviews, and hope to see you guys later.